Hey everybody, just making sure you can hear me okay. So it's been a little bit. Glad to see everyone back here. So we're going to cover some stuff with rates today. There's a lot of different ways rates can be tested. I'd say there's a few different ways you can answer certain rate questions, which is fine. Everyone has kind of their own methods. The thing that I'll always say when it relates to rate questions is, as long as you have a process that you think more or less works, you know, regardless of, you know, like for example, like with converging rates, the way we teach it is distance 1 plus distance 2 equals total distance. I know other people will follow a method where they add the rates together. Now, my thing is I'm fine with either method. As I said, the one main thing is you just want to have a process that works. I think where people sometimes struggle with rate questions is they get a little overwhelmed because there's a lot of different kind of variations, and then they're trying to figure out how to deal with those variations on the fly. And again, that might work for you, but in the way that I learned rates best, in the way that made this topic and work way less overwhelming, was having processes in place for most of these questions. Now, I can pose this to you guys. Do you guys feel a little overwhelmed by rate questions at times, or do you feel like, you know, either you've taken the TTP methods or other methods and put them into place to, you know, successfully deal with them? Like what's, how do you guys feel about those questions in general? If you guys have any thoughts, you can put them into the chat box. If you don't have thoughts, then we're going to get going here with the first question type. Scared of them. All right, so there you go. So I think it's okay to feel a little scared of these types of questions, but I will tell you that they're not as bad as they seem. So I'm going to show you something pretty interesting here. So for example, I want to start with average rate questions. So this is a great example of having a formula down and being able to use it successfully at a moment's notice. So take a look at this here. Okay, so I'll give you guys a couple minutes and then we'll talk about this question here. Make sure to put your answer in the chat box too. Okay, so I see a bunch of good answers here. Let me ask you guys an important question. Did you plug in a real value for distance, or did you use a variable? I ask this all the time when doing this question. Rate, time, distance. I say use a real number. So you have a 2 and a from. 2 is 4. From is 10. I would use a distance like 20 and 20, and look how clean this becomes. 20 over 4 is 5. 20 over 10 is 2. Total distance is 40. Total time is 7. See how clean and simple that is? That's what I want you doing if you can, you know, in these questions. I mean, how do you guys feel about that versus variables? Yeah, way faster, right? Now, I agree. That you can use a variable, and I agree that it takes some time to say, hey, I need to use 20 and 20. That's the simplest number because you got to use one that's easily divisible. But if you can do that strategically in these average rate questions, you know, this isn't going to be all that bad for you. So I would say to try to do that a little bit more if you can. It's a really, really good way to deal with these questions. Now, I want to talk about some other types, like converging, for example. It's another good question type. Do one where the times are different. So take a look at this. All right, so give this one a shot here. right, so did you guys use the formula here that distance 1 plus distance 2 is equal to, oops, that shouldn't be a question mark, to total distance? Is that the formula you used, or did you guys add your rates together? All right, cool. And you probably learned that formula from added rates. Okay, like I said, it's okay if you add rates. I'll show you what I do. It really is the same thing. It kind of all comes out in the wash anyway. So I'm not going to say that one method is worse or better than the other. So we've got train A, we've got train B, right? Train A is going 50 miles per hour. Train B is going 60 miles per hour. Now, train A leaves earlier by 30 minutes. So we're talking about T plus a half an hour, because by the time train B starts, train A has a 30-minute head start. We put it in hours because of the rate. Train B is just T. Now we multiply across 50T plus 25 and 60T. Oops. And then I'm just adding these together, setting it equal to the total distance, which is the distances they were apart. So 50T plus 60T is 110T plus 25 is equal to 245. 110T is equal to 220, and T is equal to 2, so 2 hours. Now we have to add that. Easiest thing is to add it to this time here because there's less going on. This is the 12:30 time. Adding 2 hours to that is going to give you a value of 2:30 p.m. So again, not so bad. You know, it's just whatever method you use, like I said, you just want to make sure it's useful, regardless of what you're doing there. Does anyone have any questions about that? All right, looks like we're good. I want to do a catch up and pass question now. All right, try this here. All right, so there's definitely a long way and a short way to deal with a question like this. Did you guys do the short version where you can just say time is equal to delta distance over delta rate? All right, good. Because there's another way. I mean, you can set the times to be the same, and then you can set up an equation. Again, it's all going to come out in the wash here. Yeah, okay, so I want you to learn this method. This is really great. And look, I get it. There's a lot to memorize on the GMAT. This is another thing to memorize, but the fact is, if you get this type of question on the test, and if you know delta distance over delta rate, you crush the question in 20, 30 seconds, and that's great. That's a good feeling. So 80 feet behind to 40 feet ahead means that you're going to be, the delta distance is 120 feet. Difference between the rates is 400, right? We do some reducing. Now remember, this is in minutes because the rate was in minutes. So 12 over 40 reduces even more to 3 over 10. Multiply it by 60. 10 goes into 60 6 times. 18 is your answer here. And that's pretty nice, pretty clean, right? Yeah, I agree. I think this is a really cool formula. Now, what I want to do next is a formula that, or a type of question that doesn't have a specific formula to it. So, let's see here, take a look at this question here. It's one of my favorites as well. All right, take a look at that. An LCM trick? To this question, no, there's no LCM trick for that. It's just, the trick is using that formula, really. All right, did you guys find this harder because there was kind of more going on, or did you find it similar? Well, this is an interesting question. It has a lot to do with like translations. It's not, there's no specified formula to use. You're just dealing with relationships. And once you see that, it's not going to be so bad. So we have Jack, we have Anna. Okay, so they're both going 30 miles. That's important. We see that Jack's speed is a fourth greater than Anna's speed. So if she's a speed of X, this is like a, I'd say this was like a 635 level question, maybe 645. Anna is X, he's going to be 5X over 4, right? Because that's 1/4 greater. So then you do the times out real quick. You end up with 120 over 5X, which becomes 24 over X for the time. And then the time for Anna is 30 over X. Now, we know that Jack arrives 10 minutes before Anna. That's 1/6 of an hour, which means his time is a lesser time, right? So you take Jack's lesser time, you add 1/6 to it, and you set it equal to the larger time of 30 over X. Then you have 1/6 is equal to 6 over X, cross multiply, 36 is X, and there is your final answer there. So does that make sense to everybody? Any questions about that? All right, let's try one more question here. But I think these are the types of things I want you guys to be able to start looking out for. And another similar question in the same vein is something like this here. Okay. Oh, that's good to hear you thought that was easier. Oh, you mean my method was easier. Right, got it. All right. Did you guys take some of what we did in the last question and kind of use it here? I know obviously we have quadratics here. That changes things up a bit, but I'm just curious, did some of the key points from the last question kind of bleed into this one here? All right. Plugged in. Oh, you plugged in the options. Okay. I mean, that works too. I mean, you do get a quadratic that you have to factor down. That's a way to do it. That's always an option if you're stumped. But what we have is what did happen, and then we have an if, right? So a did and an if. The did is just the R miles per hour. 30 miles is the destination or the distance, so it's 30 over R for one time. The if is 4 miles per hour faster, but the thing is the distance isn't changing, right? So it's R plus 4 and 30. You're still doing 30 over and then 4 plus R. Same deal though, the if time is the lesser time. So 2 hours earlier means you take the lesser time, which is 30 plus R over 4. You add 2 to it, and it equals the larger time. Now, something I like to do in these situations, I like to multiply through to get rid of my denominators here. So that's going to give me 30R plus 2R times R plus 4. Sorry, 2R. Actually fix that. My pen tool's acting up. 2R plus or times R plus 4, and then equals, the R's cancel, so it becomes basically 30R. I'm going to move this over, plus 120. So let's put this at the bottom. I'll change the color. We'll get a clean equation here. So 30R plus distributing 2R squared plus 8R equals 30R plus 120. Now, the 30R's cancel, right? Divide everything by 2. R squared plus 4R equals 60, or minus 60 equals 0. And then from here, you're just having to sort through the quadratic equation of how that kind of cancels down or factors out. Like somebody said, at some point, you know, you can plug in answer choices if you feel like you need to, but it's not something you have to do. I mean, if you feel like, okay, I know that this is going to factor down to R plus 10, R minus 6, and then it's clear that R is 6. So actual travel is 6 miles per hour. All right, we can end on this question. Why did you add the 2? No, it wasn't an earlier time. It just meant that he got there 2 hours quicker than the other person. I think you're misunderstanding the word earlier. It just means that one time, if I get somewhere earlier than you did, my time is lesser than yours. So you're taking the lesser amount, adding something to it to equal the greater amount. That's how you want to look at that. Is there a way to solve this without quadratics? No. This is always going to end up being a quadratic no matter which way you slice it, unless you're plugging in answer choices from the start. That would be it. But you know, again, this is something you can work on. It's not horrible, and then you know, it's a question type you can get really solid at. All right. Any other questions, random questions that people have about your studying, about target test prep in general, anything like that? Anything at all? Any questions? All right. Well, if no one has any, oh, there we go. A session on decimals? No. But I mean, I think decimals is something you can just practice. I don't know what issues you have with them, but if, you know, it's about multiplying or dividing decimals, like you can certainly just, you know, search that out and just do some practicing on it. I don't think it's, once you kind of learn it, you can. Is there a way to identify, well, this type of question will always be solved using quadratics. So that's, you know, once you see this if-did question enough, you'll know when, you know, you're basically comparing the rates by adding, you know, one is some amount greater than another. So I would say that that's one way, but it doesn't really matter whether you know that from the start or not. It's just, you're going to have to do it anyway, whether or not you realize it right off the bat or not. These webinars are usually once a week until the end of the month. So we'll have another next week. The week after, I'm not positive we'll have one because I'm going to be out of town for most of the week. You're confused how it became a quadratic. I mean, it just kind of did. We multiplied through this here, then we ended up with this here. When you distributed the 2r, that became the 2r squared plus 8r. That's why it became a quadratic. So yeah, just, and again, we have a whole lesson on this in Target Test Prep, so you can definitely check that out as well. If you're stuck at a score, I mean, there's a lot of things. It depends on what you've done so far in your prep. Like if you're using Target Test Prep, you would want to complete the whole course. If you have and you're still stuck at a score, like we have an additional study plan that includes official guide work, and custom tests, and more practice tests. So, you know, a lot of it is just hyper-analyzing what you're doing wrong, why you're doing it wrong, et cetera. That's always going to be helpful. So it takes time. You know, I was working with a student last night, and he's literally like 1 or 2 questions away of hitting his goal score, but he keeps getting like a few fairly easy questions wrong that he shouldn't. So sometimes it's about cleaning up, you know, just your performance on test day, presuming that your content knowledge is where you need it to be. Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to do these. Glad you enjoyed it. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, good work, everybody. Thanks for joining. If you're struggling on test day, yes, check out our article on anxiety. That sounds like you're having anxiety issues. We have a bunch of videos on that too. Just Google Target Test Prep anxiety blog, and then YouTube anxiety. You'll see a bunch of stuff on it. That's what you got to start to work on. All right, cool. So if that's it, then we're good to go. I'll see everybody next week, probably later in the week. Probably do work questions as my guess. Thanks for coming. Thanks for participating. And if you need anything, just reach out. We're always around. Thanks, everybody.